Shalom, I am Keith Hayes. It's day 107 of Read the Bible in a Year. It's early in the morning, as usual. And we're reading 2 Kings chapters 5 through 8. So again, good reading. Good reading. Let's go ahead and dive in. See what the Father's got. Chapter 5, page 386 in the scriptures, if you want to follow along. Not sure in the King James or any other Bible. 2 Kings. You got this. All right. Chapter 5. And Naaman, commander of the army of the sovereign of Aram, was a great man in the eyes of his master, and highly respected, because by him Yahweh had given deliverance to Aram. And he was a brave man, but leprous. And the Arameans had gone out on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. And she served the wife of Naaman. And she said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the prophet who is in Shomeron, then he would recover him from his leprosy." And Naaman went in and reported to the master, saying, "Thus and thus spoke the girl who is from the land of Israel." And the sovereign said to Aram, the sovereign of Aram said, "Go, enter, let me send a letter of the sovereign of Israel." And he went and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of garments. And he brought the letter to the sovereign of Israel and said, "And now, when this letter comes to you, see, I have sent Naaman, my servant, to you, so that you shall recover him of his leprosy." And it came to be, when the sovereign of Israel read the letter, that he tore his garments and said, "Am I Elohim to kill and keep alive, that this man sends me to recover him of his leprosy? For consider now and see how he is seeking an occasion with me." And it came to be, when Elisha, the man of Elohim, heard that the servant of Israel had torn his garments, that he sent to the sovereign, saying, "Why have you torn your garments? Please let him come to me, so that he knows that there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariot, and he stood at the entrance of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go, and you shall wash 7 times in the Jordan, that your flesh might be restored to you and be clean." But Naaman became wroth and went away and said, "See, I said to myself, he would certainly come out to me and stand and call on the name of Yahweh as Elohim and wave his hand over the place and recover the leprosy. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" And he turned and went away in rage. And his servants came near and spoke to him and said, "My father, if the prophet had spoken to you a great matter, would you not have done it? How much more then, when he says to you, 'Wash and be clean'?" Then he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of Elohim, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of Elohim, he and all his company, and came and stood before him and said, "See, now I know that there is no Elohim in all the earth except in Israel, and now please take a gift from your servant." But he said, "As Yahweh lives, before whom I stand, I do not accept it." And he pressed on him to accept it, but he refused. Then Naaman said, If not, please let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth, for no longer is your servant going to make an ascending offering and a slaughtering to other mighty ones, but to Yahweh. Yahweh, grant forgiveness to your servant in this matter. When my master goes into the house of Ramon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow down in the house of Ramon, when I bow down in the house of Ramon, Yahweh, please grant forgiveness to your servant in this matter. And he said to him, Go in peace. And he went from him some distance. And Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of Elohim, said, Look, my master has spared Naaman, this Aramean, while not receiving from his hands what he brought. But as Yahweh lives, I shall run after him and take whatever from him. And Gehazi pursued Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he came down from the chariot to meet him and said, Is there peace? And he said, Peace. My master has sent me, saying, Look, even now 2 young men of the sons of the prophets have come to me from the mountains of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments. And Naaman said, Please accept 2 talents. And he urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags, and 2 changes of garments, and handed them to 2 of his servants, and they bare them ahead of him. And when he came to the high place, he took from their hand and stored them away in the house, and let them go. And they went. And he went in and stood before his master, and Elisha said to him, Where did you go, Gehazi? And he said, Your servant did not go anywhere. But he said to him, Did not my heart go with you when the man turned back from his chariot to meet you? Is it time to accept silver and to accept garments and olive trees and vineyards and sheep and cattle and male servants and female servants? So let the leprosy of Naaman cling to you and your descendants forever. And he went out from him as leprous as snow. Wow. For the greed. Greed and love as money. Love of money is his leprosy. Oh my goodness. Well, there's chapter 5. Got to tell you, this portion right here almost brought tears to my eyes. You see the heart posture of Naaman. And in verse 17, then Naaman said, If not, please let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth, for no longer is your servant going to make an ascending offering and slaughtering to other mighty ones, but to Yahweh. Verse 18, Yahweh, grant forgiveness to your servant in this matter. When my master goes into the house of Ramon to worship there, he has to bow his knee to another god because he's in service to his master. And he says, Please, I know my master worships another god. Please provide me forgiveness when I have to bow my knee to this God because of my master. But I worship Yahweh. He's setting a clear line here. He's saying, I do not worship this God. I will only worship Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel. And Elisha says to him, Go in peace. I love that. Oh. I absolutely love that. Chapter 6. And the sons of the prophet said to Elisha, "See, the place where we dwell with you is too small for us. Please let us go to the Jordan, and let every man take a log from there, and let us make there a place to dwell." And he answered, "Go." Then the one said, "Please undertake to go with your servants." And he answered, "I shall go." And he went with them, and they came to the Jordan, and they cut down trees. And it came to be, as one was cutting down a tree, that the iron axe head fell into the water. And he cried out and said, "O my master, for it is borrowed." And the man of Elohim said, "Where did it fall?" And he showed him a place where he cut off a stick and threw it in there and made the iron float. He showed him the place, and he cut off a stick and threw it in there and made the iron float. And he said, "Pick it up." And he reached out his hand and took it. And the sovereign of Aram was fighting against Israel, and took counsel with his servants, saying, "My camp is in such and such place." And the man of Elohim sent to the sovereign of Israel, saying, "Be on guard, do not pass this place, for the Arameans are coming down there." The sovereign of Israel then sent to the place which the man of Elohim had spoken to him, and warned him, so that he was on his guard there, not once and not twice. And this greatly troubled the heart of the sovereign of Aram, and he called his servants and said to them, "Declare to me, who of us is for the sovereign of Israel?" And one of his servants said, "None, my master, O sovereign, for Elisha the prophet who is in Israel declares to the sovereign of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom." And he said, "Go, see where he is, so that I send and get him." And it was reported to him, saying, "See, he is in Dothan." And he sent horses and chariots and a great army there, and they came by night and surrounded the city. And the servant of the man of Elohim rose early and went out and saw an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. And his servant said to him, "O my master, what do we do?" And he said, "Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed and said, "Yahweh, I pray, open his eyes and let him see." And Yahweh opened the eyes of the young man, and he looked and saw a mountain covered with horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed to Yahweh and said, "Strike this nation with blindness, I pray." And he struck them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said to them, "This is not the way, nor is this the city. Follow me, and let me bring you to the man whom you seek." But he led them to Shomeron. And it came to be, when they had come to Shomeron, that Elisha said, "Yahweh, open the eyes of these men so that they see." And Yahweh opened their eyes, and they looked and saw they were in the midst of Shomeron. And when the sovereign of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, "My father, should I strike? Should I strike?" But he said, "Do not strike. Do you strike those whom you have taken captive with your sword and your bow? Set food and water before them, let them eat and drink, and go to their master." And he made a great feast for them. After they ate and drank, he let them go, and they went to their master, and the bands of Aramean raiders came no more into the land of Israel. And after this it came to be that Ben-Hadad, the sovereign of Aram, mustered all his army and went up and besieged Shomeron. There was great scarcity of food in Shomeron, and see, they besieged it until a donkey's head went to 80 pieces of silver, and 1/4 of a cob of dove droppings for 5 pieces of silver. Wow, that's okay. Serious supply and demand there. And it came to be as the sovereign of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried out to him, saying, "Help, my master, O sovereign." And he said, "If Yahweh does not help you, where do I find help for you? From the threshing floor or from the winepress?" And the sovereign said to her, "What is troubling you?" And she answered, "This woman said to me, 'Give your son and let us eat him today, and tomorrow we eat my son.' So we cooked my son and ate him. And I said to her on the next day, 'Give your son and let us eat him.' But she has hidden her son." And it came to be, when the sovereign heard the words of the woman, that he tore his garments, and as he passed by on the wall, the people looked and saw the sackcloth on his body underneath. And he said, "Elohim, do so to me and more also, if the head of Elisha, son of Shaphat, remains on him today." And Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were sitting with him. And the sovereign sent a man ahead of him. But before the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, "Do you see how this son of a murderer has sent someone to take away my head? Look, when the messenger comes, shut the door and hold him fast at the door. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him?" While he was still speaking with them, then see, the messenger came down to him, and he said, "Look, this evil is from Yahweh. Why should I wait for Yahweh any longer?" Chapter 7. And Elisha said, "Hear the word of Yahweh. Thus said Yahweh, about this time tomorrow, a seah of fine flour for a shekel, 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, at the gate of Shomeron, and an officer on whose hand the sovereign leaned answered the man of Elohim and said, 'Look, if Yahweh is making windows in the heavens, shall this word come true?' And he said, 'Look, you are about to see it with your eyes, but not eat of it.' And there were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate, and they said to each other, 'Why are we sitting here until we are dead? If we shall say, Let us go into the city, the scarcity of food is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit here, we shall die. And now, come, let us surrender to the army of the Arameans. If they keep us alive, we live. And if they kill us, we shall die.' So at twilight they rose up to go to the camp of the Arameans, and when they had come to the outskirts of the Aramean camp, look, no one was there. For Yahweh had caused the army of the Arameans to hear the noise of chariots and the noise of horses and the noise of a great army. And they said to each other, 'Look, the sovereign of Israel has hired against us the sovereigns of the Hittites and the sovereigns of Mitzrites to come against us.' So they rose up and fled at twilight and left the camp as it is, their tents and their horses and their donkeys, and they fled for their lives. And when these lepers came to the outskirts of the camp, they went into one tent and ate and drank, and took from their silver and gold and garments, and went and hid them. And they came back into another tent and took from there, and went and hid it. Then they said to each other, 'We are not doing right. This day is a day of good news, and we are keeping silent. And if we wait until morning light, then evil shall come upon us. And now come, let us go and inform the house of the sovereign.' And they came and called to the gatekeepers of the city and informed them, saying, 'We went to the camp of Aram, and look, there is not a man or a voice of a man, only horses tied and donkeys tied in the tents as they were.' And the gatekeepers called, and they informed the house of the sovereign inside. So the sovereign rose up in the night and said to his servants, "Let me now inform you that the Arameans have done what the Arameans have done to us. They know that we are starving, so they have gone up out of the camp to hide themselves in the fields, saying, 'When they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive and enter into the city.' And one of his servants answered and said, 'Please, let some take 5 of the horses that are left in the city. Look, they are like the entire crowd of Israel that are left in it. Look, they are like the entire crowd of Israel left from those who are consumed. So let us send and see.' Then they took 2 chariots with horses, and the sovereign sent them in the direction of the camp of Aram, saying, 'Go and see.' They went after them they went after them to the Jordan, and look, all the way was littered with garments and weapons which the Arameans had thrown away in their haste. And the messengers returned and reported to the sovereign, and the people went out and plundered the camp of Aram. So a seah of fine flour was for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, according to the word of Yahweh. And the sovereign had appointed the officer on whose hand he leaned to be in charge of the gate, but the people trampled him in the gate, and he died, as the man of Elohim had said, who spoke when the sovereign came down to him. And it came to be, as the man of Elohim had spoken to the sovereign, saying, 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, and a seah of fine flour for a shekel, at this time tomorrow in the gate of Shomron, that the officer answered the man of Elohim and said, 'Now look, if Yahweh is making windows in the heavens, is it according to this word?' And he said, 'Look, you are about to see it with your eyes, but not eat of it.' And it came to be for him, for the people trampled him in the gate, and he died." Another drink. And chapter 8. And Elisha spoke to the woman whose son had restored to life, saying, Rise up, go, you and your household, and sojourn wherever you do sojourn. For Yahweh is called for a scarcity of food, and also it is coming upon the land for 7 years. 7 years. Again. So that happened in the Torah, remember? So Yahweh is called for a scarcity of food to come on the land for 7 years. And the woman rose up and did according to the word of the man of Elohim, and she went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Philistines for 7 years. And it came to be at the end of 7 years that the woman returned. Turning the page, the sticky page. And she returned to the land of the Philistines, and she went to cry out to the sovereign for her house and for her land. She returned from the land of the Philistines, and she went to cry out to the sovereign for her house and for her land. And the sovereign was speaking to Gehazi, the servant of the man of Elohim, saying, Please, relate to me all the great matters Elisha has done. And it came to be, as he was relating to the sovereign how he had restored the dead to life, that see, the woman whose son he had restored to life was crying out to the sovereign for her house and for her land. And Gehazi said, My master, O sovereign, this is the woman. This is her son whom Elisha restored to life. So the sovereign asked the woman, and she related to him, and the sovereign appointed a certain eunuch for her, saying, Return all that was hers, and all the increase of the field from the day that she left the land until now. And Elisha came to Damascus, and Ben-Hadad, sovereign of Aram, was sick, and it was reported to him, saying, The man of Elohim is come here. And the sovereign said to Hazael, Take a present in your hand, and go to meet the man of Elohim, and require of Yahweh by him, saying, Do I recover from this sickness? And Hazael went to meet him, and took a present with him of all the good wares of Damascus, 40 camel loads, and came and stood before him, and said, Your son Ben-Hadad, sovereign of Aram, has sent me to you, saying, Do I recover from this sickness? And Elisha said to him, Go, say to him, You shall certainly recover, but Yahweh has shown me that he shall certainly die. And he looked at him steadily until he was ashamed. Then the man of Elohim wept. And Hazael said, Why is my master weeping? And he answered, Because I know the evil that you are going to do to the children of Israel, setting their strongholds on fire, killing their young men with swords, and dashing their children, and ripping open their women with child. And Hazael said, But what is your servant, a dog, that he should perform this great matter? And Elisha answered, Yahweh has shown that you are to be sovereign over Aram. And he left Elisha and came to his master, who said to him, What did Elisha say to you? And he answered, He said to me that you shall certainly recover. And on the next day it came to be that he took a thick cloth and dipped it in water and spread it over his face, so that he died. And Hazael reigned in his place. And in the 5th year of Joram, son of Ahab, sovereign of Israel, Jehoshaphat was sovereign of Judah. Jehoram, son of Jehoshaphat, began to reign as sovereign of Judah. He was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the way of the sovereigns of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done, for the daughter of Ahab was his wife, and he did evil in the eyes of Yahweh. However, Yahweh would not destroy Yehudah for the sake of David his servant, as he had promised to give a lamp to him and his servant and his sons forever. In his days Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah, and made a sovereign over themselves. And Joram passed over to Seir, and all his chariots with him, and he rose by night and struck the Edomites who had surrounded him, and the commanders of the chariots. But his people fled to their tents. Yet Edom had been in revolt under the hand of Yehudah to this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time, and the crest of the acts of Joram and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Judah? So Joram slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Ahazyahu his son reigned in his place in the 12th year of Joram, son of Ahab, sovereign of Israel. Ahazyahu, son of Jehoram, sovereign of Judah, began to reign. Ahazyahu was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem, and the name of his mother was Athaliahu, the granddaughter of Omri, the sovereign of Israel. And he walked in the way of the house of Ahab, and did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, as the house of Ahab had done, for he was the son-in-law of the house of Ahab. And he went with Joram, son of Ahab, to battle against Hazael, sovereign of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead, and the Arameans struck Joram. And sovereign Joram went back to Yisrael to recover from the wounds which the Arameans had stricken him at Ramah, when he fought against Hazael, sovereign of Aram. And Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, the sovereign of Yehuda, went down to see Joram, son of Ahab, in Israel, for he was sick. All right, and that's chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8. And tomorrow is chapter 9. Shalom.